Good morning, everybody. Thank y'all for being with us today. We really appreciate your ongoing support of the Chamber and the Public Policy Committee in our entire community. It takes all of us working together to keep our community thriving. With that in mind, at this time, I'd like to call on our presenting sponsor, Matt Littlejohn from MUSC. There's Matt. Come on up and give us a few words.
Good morning, everybody. I was thinking about what I was going to say coming in this morning, and I know we've got the Attorney General with us, and so I thought, how many Gamecock fans we have in the room? All right, how many Clemson fans we got in the room? All right, I knew we couldn't talk about that. So then I went to, okay, maybe I'll talk about politics. No, can't do that. So happy holidays. I think we're just going to say happy holidays. I started with MUSC on May 1st. It's been a wonderful opportunity. I think some of you heard my story. You know, I'm from Columbia, so this is a chance to come back home and not only be in the community that raised me, but also I didn't know what hospital administration was if it weren't for Providence. So my mom worked for the Sisters for 33 years. So if anybody met any of the nuns who used to actually run the hospital, they were a big influence on my life. And so I feel like it's an honor to get to walk the halls and serve our patients the way that they did. You know, some of the more positive things, you know, we've obviously as a hospital administrator, the things that I would love to talk to you about are all the doctors we're stealing from our competition and all these things. But really some of the things that we're most proud of, obviously we've Leapfrog is a big rating agency that looks at healthcare institutions and rates them. I'm happy to say that for the Midlands, we've received for the fall 2 A's and a B. And you know, B is pretty good in my book. I know maybe the Attorney General was an all A guy, but B's are good in my book. So we're excited about that. The South Carolina Hospital Association just awarded us 25 Zero Harm Awards, which is a very big compliment to our organizations about different service lines and quality indicators that are associated with each. So we've got a lot of positive things going. Selfishly, you know, I'm always going to speak highly of our people, but I do think that we've got a new day. We've built out our team, and so we're very proud of our of where we're going. So I just want to say again, thank you guys for welcoming me to the community, and I'm very proud to be here. And I think that, you know, for those of you who are lifers with Columbia, you know, I was a lifer for 22 years. And having the chance to come home, there's no substitute. And so don't take it for granted because it is a great place to live and it's a wonderful state to raise a family. So thank you guys. I look forward to a great conversation today. And again, if you have any questions for me, please find me. I have an open door policy for everybody. So thank you guys.
All right, so the chamber staff doesn't trust me with much, so I'm introducing a man who needs no introduction. So that's my low-hanging fruit for today. Alan Wilson is our Attorney General. I didn't have an appreciation for how wide-ranging his role is. He oversees over 300 employees, with 90 of those being attorneys. They've got active case files, over 8,000 of them right now. And so, you know, the chamber obviously wants to view things through the lens of the business community and commerce and what we're doing to further our aims in business. But as we were talking before, we talked about how we're also all moms and dads and children and just community members. And so what he does and his staff does impacts us from a business perspective, but also from just where we live and work and play. So, he's a great resource to our state and our region, and we just wanted to pick his brain this morning. So if y'all are welcome, Attorney General Alan Wilson, we're getting started.
I like to move around. Comes from my days as a prosecutor. So if y'all don't mind, I'm going to kind of migrate. Also, I can dodge vegetables and fruit if someone throws it at me. It is great to be with you this morning. So what would get me up at 5:30 this morning to go work out and cross the river Styx? That's the Congaree River, because I live over in Lexington, right? And come over here. It's because of all of you, what you mean to this community. And by community, I don't just mean Columbia, because all the communities are daisy chained together. It's not like there's an invisible wall, right? And whatever crime issue you have on this side of the line doesn't bleed over, or education issue or business issue, it all bleeds over, right? So that's one of the reasons I'm here today to talk about. Now, someone a minute ago was just saying that they thought I might be a straight A guy. I was more of a 2-0 and go guy. You know, check the box and get on. I did better later in life, but early in life, you know, they say some people stop to smell the roses. I rolled around in a couple of gardens, but despite my best efforts, I overcame that and was able to have the most fortunate opportunity to represent all of you as Attorney General. I was elected in 2010. At that time, this is my humble brag for the whole time I'm talking, youngest Attorney General in the country, age 37. I'm at 50 now. I'm looking back at that. I'm like, my God, they let me run that place when I was a baby. But I got reelected this past time for my 4th term, took office in January, and I found out at the National AG meeting we went to, out of the 54 AGs, including the territories and District of Columbia, I'm the now longest serving Attorney General in the country. So I went from the youngest to the dean of the entire AG caucus in both parties, actually. And but I'm still the top 5 youngest. So I still claim that. So that's my little humble brag and the asterisk in my biography. But it is great to be here this morning. We were talking earlier about, you know, you can't talk about politics, you can't talk about sports. But one thing I am going to say is whether you wear an orange jersey or a garnet jersey on Saturday, or you wear a blue jersey or a red jersey on election day, we're all in the same community. And the one thing that people want from, regardless of where you are on any spectrum, everybody wants good government. So I'm here today to talk to you about something that I think if you haven't already been following it, it's timely and it's topical, because yesterday there was an ad hoc House committee to talk about judicial reform. This is something that I've been championing for many years now. And at the beginning of this year, I had a meeting with the House leadership, went and sat with Speaker Merle Smith. And I told him about my concerns, and he shared some of the concerns. And he said, by the end of the year, we're going to have a committee stood up. Now, I wasn't able, some of you who don't live under a rock realize there was a tiny trial at the beginning of the year. And we were sidelined for about 6 or 7 weeks, but we came out from under that, from the Murdaugh trial, and we went running full steam on the judicial reform issue that's out there in our state. Some of you probably read about the Gerard Price case that happened earlier this year as well. That kind of gave a little fuel to the fire. But I'm going to talk about our system and what we should do. I will say this: 5-6 months have passed since that big trial ended. We're going to have a Q&A period here in a little bit. So every speech that I gave in the first couple of months after the Murdaugh trial, if I were speaking to a bunch of Boy Scouts, I would get questions like, Mr. Attorney General, tell us about your scouting experience with the scouting program and how it impacted you on the Murdaugh trial. If I'm speaking to a group of pastors or religious leaders, tell us about your faith and how it influenced the Murdaugh trial. If I'm talking to business leaders and owners, talk about the economic climate at the time of the murders in the Murdaugh trial. You know, I mean, it was always a Murdaugh hook because people were so animated and they were fascinated by that trial that captured the attention, not of a nation. I had people texting me from abroad while watching it on TV. So I'm happy to answer questions. I'm not going to talk about it in my initial presentation, but if you have a question about it, I'm happy to answer that. All right. So first off, I'm going to start off with telling you, and you're all business leaders and activists within this community. So there's going to be a hook for you. I'm going to say something that will grab your attention, and I'm going to start off broadly by telling you what my views for good government are. Okay. Years ago, I went on I'm in the Army Guard. So I went on a long run, and I was thinking, that's what I do when I run. I think about things, and I was thinking about what is a good test, a good metric for determining what good government is. And I kind of came up with during that run, I came up with a 5-way test for what good government is, what attributes of government should exist. A good government, whether it's local, state, or federal, or the people who serve in government, they should all exhibit these 5 qualities. They're not exhaustive or totally inclusive. There could be others, but it should be responsible. It should be predictable. It should be accountable. It should be profitable. It should be stable. I'll repeat that one more time. Anything coming out of government, whether it's a rule, a law, a regulation, or any person serving in government, it should be responsible, predictable, accountable, profitable, and stable. Now, the first 3 prongs of that 5-way test are really the 3-legged stool. They're really the main part of the test: responsible government, predictable government, and accountable government. The last 2, profitable and stable, in my opinion, those are byproducts of good government. And what I mean by profitable, the government doesn't have money, right? The government doesn't actually have a big bank account and it spends. It only has what it takes, okay? So the government can create the conditions, whether it's a local city, town council, state legislature, Congress, executive branch, whatever. It can create the conditions for prosperity and profitability, but it's the people in the private sector, in the free market, who react to a tax rate or a regulation. And then the stable or the stability, the fifth one is, do we have communities that are stable? Can we send our kids to schools that are stable? Can we drive our cars down roads and bridges and highways and interstates? Is our infrastructure, is it stable? Are there our neighborhoods and communities? Are they safe? Safe is important. People don't want to move into a community or start a business in a community or grow in a community that they feel like there's going to be gang activity or drug activity or theft or something like that. Everybody in this room wants the same thing. Doesn't matter where you are on the political spectrum or on the Carolina Clemson spectrum, we're all bipartisan. We all want the same thing. We might have differences of opinion on how to get there, but we want the same thing. And that's in stability. That is the why do we have government to begin with question. So we want a government that produces the conditions for profitability and stability. But I'm going to go back to the original three. Responsible. Is everything coming out of government responsible? Is the rule, the law, the regulation, or the policy, is it responsible? Are they responsible for the money that they take from you through their tax assessment? Are they responsible with the power that you give them, me included, at the ballot box, right? Responsible, predictable. This is one of the ones that people don't talk about. Every rule, we're watching football, every rule that the football players follow is supposed to give you predictability. If I put the crown of my head into the other guy's helmet, what am I going to get called for? Targeting. And what could possibly happen, right? We all know the rules. If it's intentional, you're out of the game, right? Everyone knows the rules. If you do X, Y will happen. But when government passes policies, rules, or regulations, or they act erratically and they create less predictability in the market system, then all of a sudden businesses have to account for that in their budget, right? You have to hire accountants and compliance officers and lawyers. I know we can't have more lawyers, right? Got my lawyer friend up here. No more lawyers, God, no. Okay, and the cost of complying with government regulations, government policies, government laws is that the cost gets passed to the end user, which is either the taxpayer or the consumer, okay? So you want a government that is predictable so that people can, when there's more predictability, it costs less to do business. When there's less predictability, it costs more to do business, all right? The accountable prong, that's going to kind of tie into judicial reform. We want a government that is accountable. Whether you like or dislike the people who are in office, you want to know if you don't like something coming out of government, where do I go? What person do I talk to? What button do I push, metaphorically speaking, to address the issue that I am concerned about? Okay? And sometimes government is designed so that there's no accountability. How do you hold people accountable? You don't feel like there's transparency or accountability, then you have a lack of faith. You can live with bad rules or policies coming out of government if you believe that the people implementing them are being held accountable, either at the ballot box or through the long arm of the law or through whatever political mechanisms we have. Here in South Carolina, we have an issue with the perceived accountability of our three branches of government. And that's what it comes to. That's what judicial reform comes down to. Everybody in here who graduated from the third grade, which is everybody in here, knows that there are three branches of government created at the federal level, emulated by the states in our system of federalism. Three branches of government: executive, legislative, judicial. The whole point of three branches of government is that as long as there's human beings in government, you don't want to consolidate the power. You want to separate that power, right? And you want to have it siloed from each other so that you don't have any one branch of government to be all powerful. And you want the branches of government to be in constant tension with each other, because you don't want one branch having too much or an inordinate amount of authority over the other branches of government, okay? You want, James Madison said in Federalist 51, you want ambition to counter ambition, right? In South Carolina, there's three branches of government, just like at the federal level: executive, legislative, judicial. But here's the problem. There's no check. There's no tension between the executive branch and the judicial branch. In other words, we have no say in the executive branch on how judges are elected. I'm going to tell you in a minute why you should care, but let me explain how it works, okay? You can give me the 2 minute, you're going to say something, or maybe 3 minutes, so I can make sure I have Q&A time. In South Carolina, there's two states in the country that elect judges the way we do, okay? There is us and Virginia, Okay, it's kind of like called the Missouri plan, but it's basically a merit selection system. There's this thing called the JMSC, the Judicial Merit Selection Commission. Before I say anything else about this, I want to say one thing. I'm not here today to bash judges. I'm not here today to bash legislators or legislators who practice law before the judges that they elect. I think the vast majority of judges and the vast majority of men and women serving in the General Assembly in both parties who practice law or have influence over the judiciary are well-intentioned, good, honorable people. Okay? I'm not saying everyone is. I'm saying the vast majority. I'm not here today to say that the system we have is the worst way to elect judges. There are far worse ways to elect judges, popular election being one, in my opinion. Happy to tell you why if you want to ask me that later. Okay? What I'm saying today is our system is designed so that the balance of power is out of balance. The JMSC is in our state constitution, okay? So if you want to reform how we elect judges, you either have to amend the constitution or you have to reform within the current system. The state constitution says the General Assembly shall have a judicial merit selection commission and it shall elect from nominations made by the JMSC. So here's what happens. There is a vacancy on the family court or the circuit court or the appellate court or the Supreme Court, open vacancy. You might have 15 or 20 people apply. You may have 5 people apply. The JMSC vets all of those people to determine if they're qualified, and then it determines all the qualified applicants, and then it picks their 3 most favorite or 3 most qualified. And since if you have 10 people, it sends the 3 that they want to the General Assembly. The General Assembly votes until they get the majority vote, the majority winner, and that person assumes the bench. The JMSC is made up of 10 people. All 10 people are elected by the leadership of the General Assembly, and 6 of the 10 people are actually sitting members of the General Assembly, the other 4 being appointed by the General Assembly. So in the process of electing judges, the legislature controls the vetting process, right? The nominating process and the election process. Now, the governor can veto a budget for the judicial branch of government, but vetoes are like speed bumps in a Publix parking lot. They just go right over them. They do all the time. It's not a real check. There is no check on the balance of power. Now, why? I'm gonna give you some anecdotes. Now, people always say, we want statistics. It is very hard to have a statistic on when there's inappropriate or improper influence. It's kind of like, let's go back to the football analogy. You got a player rushes the quarterback makes a mistake, throws an interception. That isn't counted as a statistic. If you sack the quarterback, that goes in the stat book, right? Right? If you intercept the quarterback's throw, that's a stat. But there are so many things that affect the game that don't go in a statistician book, right? It doesn't get tracked. There's the perception of influence on one branch of government that could have inordinate effects on all of you and all of us, either in the criminal justice arena or the civil arena. I'll give you some examples. So these are anecdotal, all right, not statistical. I started with members of my staff. Give me anecdotal stories. So you're sitting in there in the criminal sessions court, general sessions court, and someone from the legislator walks in, snaps her fingers at the judge and says, "Chambers now," and points. The judge leaves the bench and goes back behind closed doors with the person who is the lawyer legislator. This doesn't happen often, but it did happen. That is an example. No one knows what they said back there. No one says what influence was exerted, but there's the perception of it. Here's another one. I was talking to a chamber group in the middle, well, I won't say where, but it was not in this community, but it was in a nearby community. And I was talking about this very issue. At the end of the speech, a woman came up to me and she says, "Mr. Wilson, I want to let you know that I serve on the Citizen Advisory Committee to the JMSC. Now, one thing you should know, there are 2 advisory committees to the official process for electing judges. The JMSC determines who is a candidate and the General Assembly elects, but there's a bar association that has an advisory group that advises. They get to look at the applicants and make recommendations to the JMSC, and there's a citizen advisory group. You don't have to be a lawyer to be on it, and you can make recommendations. Woman comes up to me and she said, "Mr. Wilson, recently I was serving on the citizen advisory group to the JMSC and on judicial qualifications, and we had a candidate come through, and I'm going to try to sanitize the story so as not to identify who this person is. But basically, this is a person who had been an attorney for 20 years, but had never practiced law. They had never actually practiced the kind of law in the courtroom where they were seeking to be a judge. And so when they reviewed this person was a very kind person, a very smart person, but had zero experience in that area of law, never been in a courtroom. And so they wrote a letter saying, listen, go practice law in this area of law, come back in a couple of years, and we'll be happy to make a recommendation. And they found this person unqualified. That person's application goes to the Judicial Merit Selection Commission. Not only is that candidate found to be most qualified of the applicants, but that person got elected to that position they were running for, that they had never practiced law before. And there was a perception that it was based on the relationships that person had, not the merit of that person. Now, that is not to say that person couldn't learn the job, isn't capable. There's a perception issue. There's a perception deficit that someone who had never practiced law before goes to a vetting process where there's no executive branch influence, and they sail right through and get elected because of the perceived influence they had behind them. Don't know that it happened, but that is the perception. That person now is serving on that particular circuit or that particular bench. Here's another issue. This is more related to the business community. I travel the country. I talk to business leaders. I talk to CEOs and people in the business community and trade associations at the national and state level all the time. All the time. This is a story that was told to me, and I'm really going to have to sanitize it. You're not going to be able to appreciate it fully, but you will kind of see where I'm going. But not long ago, there was a fairly large company. You all know the name of this company. This company has a footprint in South Carolina. It is not a South Carolina-based company. It is a national company. I was talking to the CEO. And the CEO told me a story because they had heard that I was focusing on judicial reform. And this is the story they told me. They said, Alan, in our industry, we do a lot of kind of industrial type work. So we provide safety training courses. And we've been doing this for decades. In fact, we train municipal government employees on the type of safety issues that might come up when they're doing the kind of stuff that we do. We do it free of charge to local government. 20 years ago, we were doing this in this other community in South Carolina, and a municipal employee took our course. 20 years later, this municipal employee is doing the very kind of service project or doing the very kind of service that the municipal government does, and that person got injured. A person hired an attorney. There was a lawsuit. Of course, and this is not bashing lawyers. This is how it was portrayed to me. They sued the municipal government, the property owner, and everyone that had deep pockets. We were the deepest pockets. We got sued because we had provided a free safety training course 20 years earlier, but we had nothing to do with the incident itself, just that we provided training 20 years earlier. We get everyone from the C-suite flies to South Carolina. They come down there. We're sitting outside the chambers waiting for the court to open. We see the attorney on the other side representing the plaintiff. We see a person we know who is serving in the General Assembly. They walk up to the plaintiff's attorney and they say, hey, I see the judge outside in the parking lot. I'm gonna go talk to the judge. I'll be right back. They leave. That legislator returns 20 minutes later. By the way, legislator was also law partners with the plaintiff's attorney. 20 minutes later, court opens, judge takes the bench. They have all their pretrial motions and hearings. And what is conveyed to me is we lost every single motion. Stuff that we didn't think was supposed to be in because it was irrelevant was allowed in. Stuff that was supposed to be kept out, or stuff that was supposed to be let in was kept out, supposed to be kept out was left in, vice versa. He said, we went through this whole process and then the trial was a disaster. We ended up paying millions of dollars. So what was the common effect of that? We no longer offer the free training to local governments. We don't offer it at all. It's not even free. We just don't offer it. And also, when people ask me about when I travel the country and they say, talk to me about South Carolina, we're thinking about opening there. They'll say, listen, it's a great state. The people are great. They got a good workforce. I mean, they got their problems like every state. But he says, he goes, I tell that story. And he goes, I don't know what was said in the parking lot between that legislator and that judge. I don't know if there was influence. I don't know if we were right or wrong on the law as it related to those motions, but I know how that looked and I know how it made us feel. And the fact that there was a perception that there was influence. Remember, it's like the quarterback who gets hurried and makes a mistake. That doesn't go in the book. It's a perception. Would the quarterback have thrown the interception without being hurried? by the defensive player? We don't know. But there's a belief that there is influence, and it doesn't get tracked. You can't prosecute it. You can't label it. It's just a feeling. So in our current system of government, I want to eliminate that as much as I possibly can. Now, I want to say this. The current system has produced amazing judges, right? Amazing men and women serving on the bench, honorable people. And if we were to reform the system, that will not eliminate the possibility that there were people who will slip through the cracks and get back on the bench again. The vast majority of legislators I've spoken to are open to reforms. And by the way, there is bipartisan opposition to judicial reform, and there is bipartisan support for the judicial reform. There are lawyer legislators who are diehard for it, and there are lawyer legislators who are diehard against it. This is not a Republican or a Democrat issue. It's like everyone, it's like you can't put people in a box. But there is a recognition that we have to do something. The way we are in South Carolina right now, making sure I'm 806, right now, we have it so that power is consolidated in one branch of government, while accountability, the third prong, is dispersed. What I want accountability consolidated. So I think that the executive branch of government should have a seat at the table of who gets vetted. Let the governor select the members of the Judicial Merit Selection Commission. By the way, take the commission out from under the General Assembly, make it a standalone commission. It doesn't need to have legislative staff working it. Make the staff answerable to the commission members appointed by the governor. The legislature under the Constitution has to elect the members or the nominees, the candidates from the JMSC. They still have an equal seat at the table. Give the executive branch a chance. If you don't like the quality or the type of judges, if you think there's not enough diversity, if you think there's judges that are too pro-crime, too pro-prosecution, too pro or anti, whatever it is you're concerned about, you can put pressure on individuals in the executive branch of government and hold them accountable for the quality of candidates their nominees on the commission are making. Remove the cap of 3. There is a perception, real or perceived, it is a perception that you have 3 people being vetted out of the JMSC, okay? Maybe not always, but there are times, and I've had legislators tell me this, 2 of them are throwaways. 1 of them is the one that they really want. That may or may not happen. Again, it's a perception issue. So for me, the whole point about government is that there needs to be an equal balance of power between the 3 branches of government. Every single day, your sheriffs, I know you've had Sheriff Lott here, and Chief Holbrook and others, your sheriffs and your police chiefs, they're in the executive branch of government. Your attorney general, your governor, your agency directors, your law enforcement directors, right? We're in the enforcement of the laws business. Every single day, we get challenged by people on the outside, and it's okay. We don't mind being challenged in front of the courts, but we have no say on who is on the courts, no check on how the courts respond to us. And by the way, the one thing that we must absolutely do when we reform how we select judges is maintain judicial independence. I was talking to a judge yesterday, and one thing I said is, you have the right to be wrong. What I mean by that is, I don't want judges to get thrown out of office or thrown off the bench because people disagreed with how they ruled on a case at the circuit court level or the Supreme, even when it's against me. I want them to be independent. And I've disagreed with court decisions in the past, but they have a right to be wrong. We've got to preserve judicial independence, but we still have to balance that against accountability. And that is what I'm looking for in judicial reform. I will close on the judicial reform by saying this. When I speak, I'm going to be testifying next week. Yesterday, you had Justice John Kittredge, you had a North Carolina judge, you had law professors, you had an ad hoc committee that is starting the opening of this entire review of how we elect judges. I'll be testifying next week. This is what I intend to tell them. I'm an interest-based person. And here's what I mean by that. Everyone has a position on policy. You take positions all the time. You know, how many move the cap of 3? Do we remove the JMSC? That's a position. What are the qualifications of the members? How many should the governor get? How many should those are all positions. For me, it's about my interest. The interest is to bring balance to government. And the analogy I use is this. 2 women walk into a grocery store and they both at the same time reach for the last orange in the bin. And they have an argument over who should get the orange. And they both negotiate a deal where they take the position that we're going to cut the orange in half and we're going to split the cost of the orange in half. You'll get half, I'll get half, and they walk out paying, for half an orange and getting half an orange. The next day they bump into each other, they have a conversation, and in that conversation, they both learn and realize that it wasn't a very good deal after all, because one woman wanted nothing but the pulp of the orange because she wanted to make a glass of orange juice. The other woman wanted nothing but the rind because she was making marmalade and needed the rind. And she says, had we not gotten stuck on our position of just wanting an orange, but actually talked about what our interests are, we could have gotten 100% of what we wanted for half the cost, right? So that is what I'm looking for, is I'm not going to get stuck mired in the details. I'm going to focus on, we got to have a situation where people in the business community, operating in local governments, operating in the private sector, feel like they have a government that is choosing judges that are both accountable and independent, and the executive branch has parity of power with the legislature. Okay, I have a minute left before Q&A?
We got a few minutes for Q&A, so.
Okay, do I have enough to talk a little bit about the human trafficking, or do you want me to?
Please.
Okay.
I'll ask that question. Tell us a little bit about human trafficking.
We'll start Q&A right now. I'm really proud, and I'm going to keep, if y'all want to ask specific questions, I'll go deeper on it. I'm very proud of what our office has been able to do. By the way, in 2010, when I got elected, I'm going to confess, I never once ran on fighting or combating human trafficking. I never thought it was an issue when I ran, and those words never left my lips. I met a human trafficking victim at a national conference who'd gotten out of the lifestyle, was rescued from it, and then started doing research and found out that South Carolina was rated one of the worst states in the country, as rated by PolarisProject.org at the time, in combating human trafficking. Went to the legislature. Hey, bipartisan, everybody recognized it. Everybody was on board. It was one of those wonderful unity times. They came together. They gave me the authority to create a human trafficking task force. They created a human trafficking law. And then within a couple of years, South Carolina went from one of the worst states on combating human trafficking to 2019. I think we were rated #1 in the country for the best, for the gold standard. Our human trafficking task force has gone from 15 mandated members to over 800 members on the state task force with 10 regional task force. We're prosecuting human trafficking. We're getting better at it. We're training our first responders, our judges, our doctors, our nurses, medical services providers. We've got nonprofits, victims groups, business groups, all engaged on this issue, and we're working to eradicate it and fight against it. But that has been a 10-year journey, and we're getting better and better and better. Our ICAC, our Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, is first cousins to human trafficking, but that's where the predators and pedophiles are preying on our children online. As you know, this thing is everywhere. The kids are getting these even younger and younger and younger, and the World Wide Web is in their pocket, and the bad guys know that. Our task force has grown from 44 law enforcement agencies to 114 law enforcement agencies. That we're out there patrolling the digital streets, the virtual world, and we're arresting more and more predators and pedophiles. And on that question, I will close by saying this. My team and I came up with an idea. We recognize that there's a new innovative technology that's going to change the world. It's called artificial intelligence. AI is to us in 2023 what the internet was to us in 1993. A new and innovative technology that will change the world for the better, but there's going to be a lot of dark aspects to it that we don't even know about yet. It's going to be very disruptive. Here's an example. It is illegal to take a child and take videos and pictures of them engaging in a sex act or exploitive act. But what if someone were to take a picture of a child off of Facebook, right? Like at a church camp or at a family vacation, and use AI to put that child's face onto a picture or a video engaging in a sex act? That child has not actually been victimized. That person has created a product that they put on the internet to feed the demand for more child exploitation. But how do you prosecute them? Let's make it even trickier. AI technology generates a child that looks like like it could be your child, but it's a fake child that doesn't even exist on the earth, engaging in like a 6-year-old engaging in a sex act. And then that is put online to feed the demand for child exploitation. Our laws have not caught up with the technology. And so South Carolina, I led a letter with our team, 54, the other 53 AGs in both parties signed on to it, to Congress, asking to set up a study commission. We put a copy of that letter to the General Assembly, asking them to create a study committee to keep our laws updated and catch them up to the technology out there. So those are things that we're doing in the AG's office.
Yeah. Any more questions? Got one right here. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
First of all, thank you for your work and what your office does for our state. Y'all keep us safe every day. Can you touch on the antitrust lawsuits regarding Facebook, Google, social media that the Department of Justice has been dealing with right now?
Yes. So there are a number of lawsuits that were going on right now where Meta and its platforms, Instagram, Facebook, we're also investigating TikTok. We're looking, and by the way, I tell parents, if you kid has TikTok on their phone, don't delete TikTok, throw your phone away and get a new phone. That's just my opinion. My kids aren't allowed to have it. But a lot of the algorithms, here's the thing. I'm going to just make this as simple as I possibly can. I have no problem with companies producing a good or a service and selling it and marketing that good or service. But when they knowingly learn that what they're selling could have an addictive quality to it and they're using that to exploit people, could be opioids, it could be social media, it could affect people. If you knowingly that it has a negative health implication and you cover it up in order to get a larger market share, I have a problem with that. Okay. Same thing with the opioids. Social media companies know that the longer that they can keep, the more eyeballs they have on their platforms, the more young eyeballs they have on their platforms, and the longer those eyeballs are on their platforms, the more money that they make. They monetize that. Okay. They monetize your data. And by the way, if you ever download an app on your phone that's free, you're the product. Just think of it like that. They're creating algorithms with infinite scroll and rabbit holes that keep kids on these platforms for hours and hours and hours, and they take them in areas that you probably wouldn't want your kids going. It could be areas involving sex or drugs or other inappropriate stuff for their age level. And it's designed to keep them just on that platform. And it's creating, there's a correlation between a lot of the mental health issues, the physical health issues going on out there. And they've done their own research, but they're trying to cover it up. That is what we're alleging in our lawsuit. We're looking at other social media platforms, but again, another bipartisan issue. We want to hold social media and big tech accountable and make them responsible for the goods and services they're providing to people and the potential negative consequences that could come out of that. Any other questions?
Yeah, I got time for about one more.
It's 8:17. Yes, sir.
Robbie Thomas, WIS, good to see you again.
Hey, good to see you.
Thank you for coming this morning.
How does all this relate to the Murdoch trial? Just kidding. You talk about popular elections not being a great way to elect judges. Wholeheartedly agree. What in the judicial reform process can you do to improve the transparency for the average citizen out there in that process of who's being nominated and how they're being vetted?
That's a great conversation. Great question, rather. So I'm still fleshing out my position because yesterday, as I was traveling the state, I went and spoke at the law school in Charleston yesterday, and we listened the whole way down and the whole way back to a lot of the testimony. And there was a lot of concern about how much of the testimony about people who are candidates for judge, in the reports should be made public. Because if everything is public, then people are less likely to talk about what they know about. So they're trying to find a balance there. I think there should be a lot of transparency, but you also want to protect. It's like when I'm investigating a case, when I'm investigating the Murdochs, all people want to know is, what are you doing next? And they're always trying to, and the bloggers and the reporters, they actually are making the case more difficult because they want to be the first to report everything. They want to put out as much information, but you want to preserve the integrity of the process so that when you get to the end, you can make everything public. What is made public at the very end is the question. So that there was a tension there as they were debating that, and we're still trying to figure it out. One thing at a minimum, obviously there is the ability to make all of the hearings completely public so that all of the stuff that comes out, all the questioning of the judicial candidates should be made completely public. They probably need to look at what out of their candidate application should be made public. If there's allegations or accusations made, somebody made the comment yesterday, someone's having an affair if they're paralegal, and should that be made public? Right? And some people would say, yeah, that should be public. So other people says, no, that has nothing to do with their qualifications. So there's a back and forth on that. But at a minimum, you need to know, first off, the type of judges, you know how they're ruling on cases in your community. And if you don't like how they're ruling, okay, the process is you can go to your House member and your senator and say, hey, you voted for Judge Jones. I'm making that up. There's no Judge Jones that I know of. And Judge Jones is letting criminals out violent criminals out and they're reoffending. Or Judge Jones is very anti-business. And here's exhibit A, B, and C. All right. And you can go talk to your House member and senator, but there's 168 other House members and senators that you have no influence over. There's one governor. And you can say, hey, governor, your commission members are vetting out people who are hostile to the business community or hostile to the victims community or too pro prosecutor. Maybe you're a defense-minded person, whatever your beef is, you want to be able to go to one person. And so for me is I want as much sunlight as possible to give people buy-in, but at the same time, I want to protect the integrity of the system so that we want people to feel free to give us information and not be outed as a whistleblower. Because if they know they're going to be outed, they won't ever provide the information to begin with. So there's a balance there. I'll close with this. This has to do with the Murdaughs. There is a perception of the influence, real or perceived. I'll let you be the judge of whether you believe it's real or perceived, that there was a lot of inordinate influence by individuals in the family down in the 14th Judicial Circuit. I will tell people this. There's a reason there are no Walmarts or big industry in Hampton County. There's a big reason for that. And I can tell you what CEOs and corporate folks have told me. It's because they didn't want to get drugged into court and shaken down. And that was why there wasn't a lot of economic development down there. So that is what I was told. I'll let you choose to believe what you want to believe. At the end of the day, you want to grow this community. You want to create economic prosperity so that you can feed more money into schools, provide good teachers, good roads, good bridges, good buildings, good infrastructure. You want to build a community we can all be proud of. You want to hire more cops, more law enforcement to keep us safe, to clean up our streets and neighborhoods for all our citizens. This is a component of that. It may not be a direct component, but it is an indirect component. What I'm asking of all of you is care about this issue because it's important to you, whether you feel it directly or indirectly. And if you talk to your legislators, tell them to take a hard look. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to know the ins and outs, but you need to say, look, how we elect judges matters. Give the executive branch a say so that we can have a more direct say and really be open to it. Tell them to be open to reform. You don't even have to know what to tell them to be for. Just tell them to be open to reform. I'll carry it from there. It's handing me the ball. Back to my football metaphor. Folks, I want to say thank you for allowing me to be here to talk to the chamber. I think this is a great cross-section of this community. All of you come from a wide array of backgrounds. There's a lot of diversity in the room. That's a good thing. And I get a lot of positive feedback and critical feedback. If you have an issue and you think my office can be helpful or you think my office is the problem, I'm okay with it. Come see me. Come talk to me. What I always tell people before I step down from giving a speech is the Office of Attorney General does not belong to Alan Wilson. It belongs to all of you. You're the owners. I'm just the trustee of the job for a short period of time until you throw me out or I get hit by a bus or something or don't run. But I'm the trustee of it. It's your office. So if you have something you think we can be helpful on, come see me. Okay. I want to be your servant because that's my job. You're my boss. I'm your employee. That's how I view this. So thank you for having me, Chamber. Thank you all for being out this morning. And I'll stick around for a few minutes for additional questions if somebody wants to ask me something.
Perfect. Thank you. Big hand. Thank you again, Attorney General Wilson. What a great resource we have in you. Next up, we've got Steve Padgett, who's going to come up and talk a little bit about partner perks.
No pressure following the Attorney General, huh? Thank you for all that you do for South Carolina to make it a better place that we all get to live and work in. Good morning. I want to take just a couple of minutes to talk about Blue Cross and your partnership and investment in the Columbia Chamber. How many of you right now work in a company that offers health insurance? That's wonderful. I hope the vast majority of those are with Blue Cross. I know the state is. That's a good thing. What I want to share with you this morning very briefly is that with Blue Cross and the Columbia Chamber, you can offer your employees, regardless of the size of your business, whether it's a 1-2 person organization to a company that has 500. There are plans available to you and benefits available to you only because you're a chamber member. And we partner with Carl and the Columbia Chamber and other chambers around the state because this is home for us. We are a South Carolina-based company. We were founded in Greenville. We're housed in Columbia. This is the only place we sell health insurance. This is home. You look at all the other carriers in the market, They have other places they sell in. This is home. We share the soccer fields. We share the church pews. This is home to us. So it is very important that we take care of our own. So we partner with chambers to provide benefits to their members from a health insurance standpoint. Because as we come out of the pandemic, one of the things that we heard loud and clear was that folks don't want to get caught in another pandemic without having access to quality health insurance. I will also tell you that right now, between now and the end of the year, from a opportunity and option standpoint, it is the best time of the year to look at health insurance. I will also tell you in Richland County especially, and you probably haven't heard this in 10 years, the rates for small group health insurance in Richland County went down. When was the last time you heard that any price went down? So it is a perfect opportunity to have that conversation. I appreciate the Columbia Chamber's opportunity to come and speak to you. If you have a need in the future, we would certainly ask for you to look at your local hometown carrier, so we can carry the ball, so to speak, for you. But it is great to see all of you here this morning. Once again, Attorney Wilson, thank you so much for all that you do in our community. And I'm going to turn it over to Susan because she's giving me the time to go speech.
Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for being here today. Thank you, Alan, for being here. We appreciate it. Great talk. Sheriff Lott has always texted me and said, what did he say? So I'm going to share the recording with him, which, by the way, this is recorded, so you can go back and look. Anna will put it on the website this afternoon. If you want to share it with anybody who did not make it this morning, please do and help us get the word out. So very powerful messages. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure now to say, in addition to thank you to Steve for Blue Cross Blue Shield. Ashley wants me to let you know that if you have any additional information you'd like to know about Blue Cross Blue Shield and partner perks, please go to the Chamber website and you can look up all of that information there. And then I want to take a minute to introduce, we have several new partners with us today. So always a pleasure to have more people to welcome to the Columbia Chamber. And if you are here today, I'm going to call your name. And if you would, please stand up. We have 160 Driving Academy. Allegiant Staffing, I know he was here. Brett Groller Coaching, thank you, sir. Civitan Club of Columbia, we have two of our gentlemen from there here. Thank you, sir, for being there. Georgia Pacific, don't see them. Keep the Midlands Beautiful. They were also at County Council last night being recognized for their great work and for keeping the community clean. We have Pro Logistic. Okay, and then SC Thrive. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. All great partners, all going to make a wonderful difference, and we appreciate those. So if you see them on the way out, please shake their hand and tell them thank you so much and get to know their businesses. We also want to celebrate our Partner of the Month, which is chosen internally to spotlight the Chamber's partners who have shown extreme efforts in assisting the Chamber's mission to create and promote an environment where businesses can flourish. So we work very closely together and we appreciate that. And I am honored to say that it is our very own Lexington Medical. We have Laura here and Thomas. And I can't tell you, I mean, they are everywhere. They do so much for this community and they do it with their hearts and with a smile. They have been partners with us since 1978. That's a long time. That's about high school graduation some. So anyway, we thank you for that. They are consistently demonstrating their dedication to not only the community and their patients, but the work of our local businesses. So that is invaluable, as you all know. They participate in the Midlands Youth Apprenticeship Program, our military outreach group, the Northeast Connection Leadership Columbia. They are great graduates of that program. So we're always glad to have them here. Their active engagement and support help us accomplish so much on behalf of the community and the businesses. So we appreciate that. And I'm going to ask Thomas and Laura if they want to please stand up. And Laura, if I see them, they're pointing back and forth to it. They're flipping the coin to see who's going to speak. So come up and on behalf of the Chamber and all of our Chamber teammates, we'd love to present you with this. We thank you so much for everything that you do. They're great business partners, but they're also very great friends. So would you like to say a word?
Always. We'll be very brief. I know we stand between you guys and traffic, and I know you're really excited about that. No, Thomas and I are excited to be here. We also have Brian Smith, who's our VP of HR. And yes, go talk to this man. And Anissa Dean Carlos, who is our Director of Staff Development and also in Leadership Columbia class this year. So Thomas and I are graduates of Leadership Columbia. Can't say enough about it. Probably one of the best things that either one of us have done. Made some great relationships, see a lot of my fellow cohorts here. So we're just excited to be able to still be a part of this community. We're excited to continue to grow and be able to share all of this with you. So love the partnerships. Columbia Chamber is an awesome way to make all of those happen. So thank you for letting us be here and thank you for presenting this to us.
Thank you. And we'll take pictures immediately after the program. So thank you so much for that. And then as if you didn't have enough busy schedules already, I want to tell you about what the Chamber's got coming. So we have some more great programs. If you joined us for the gala, thank you for that. Hillary did an amazing job and y'all did great by coming to the stadium and watching all the activity there. So I do want to tell you, we have a partner engagement tomorrow afternoon at GrowCo in 5 Points. So yeah, come see us there. A lot of fun, not a formal program, just mixing and mingling on that one. And then one of my major hearts is the military outreach group next Tuesday. That would be the 14th at 2:00 at the state fairgrounds. And while we're on military outreach, how many veterans do I have in the room? How many folks with veterans in their family? That's 95% of us here. I want to take a minute just to say thank you for your service. Thank you for your leadership, and to the spouses and families of those veterans. We can't thank you enough because we know behind every great soldier is a great family support system. So thank you. And another plug, come join the Veterans Day Parade this Friday at 11 o'clock on Sumter Street. It's the largest in the Southeast, and it's a great showcase of our great support for our military. Then on our annual sporting clay tournament is next Thursday, November 16th. Hillary is running that program. We're going to have a sheriff shoot off, which is always very interesting. We have Richland County Sheriff, we have Forest Acres, we have Camden, Casey. We have a lot of different groups coming over. So come out for that. It's going to be a beautiful day. Our Northeast Business Connection is November 28th at 8:30 in the morning at R2I2. So thank you, Maria. And then if you want to know the inside scoop of everything that's going on in Columbia, you can join us for coffee with Carl. I would advise you to be caffeinated because he always is. That is at 9 o'clock this Friday. Anna sends out a registration so you can get the link to that. So we would love for you to join us there. And without further ado, Major Craddock, anybody wants to come ring the bell with the Columbia Chamber, we would love to have you. Thank you, sir, for being here and your wonderful blessing for us. If you want to go ring a bell, call him. He's always up for some, or you can come ring with the chamber. And then Matthew, we appreciate you being here today, and Steve with Blue Cross Blue Shield. So thank you. And to each and every one of you, we appreciate you being here. We won't see you again until after the holidays. We will be back here in December on the 8th for our final program. It's going to be all decorated by the fireflies. And so we just look forward to you being here. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Be safe in your travels. And thank you for everything that you do for our community. We appreciate you. Have a lovely day.